What's going on, produce people? This is Travis back again with another video. In this video I want to talk about 3 berries that I'm growing in Kentucky, and I think you should grow them too. So during COVID I found out some information about agriculture, had a lot of time on my hands to research, and so I found this thing called the Dirty Dozen list in agriculture, and it's basically the crops, the 12 most sprayed crops in terms of pesticide usage. So this first one is one of the biggest fruits on the list, actually, and we can just grow it in our yard. So why not? Follow along. So the first plant we're going to talk about are strawberries. They're generally number one on the list every year. They deal with a lot of slug issues and things like that, so there's people always spraying some kind of pesticide or bug killer on it. There are day neutral and June bearing varieties. We're right now looking at a big patch of June bearing. You'll have to ignore the ugliness of the leaves. They just got done producing, so they're quite ugly looking right now, but that's just kind of what usually happens when berries get done producing for the year. June bearing varieties produce a large amount and they're ripe all at one time, so they're great for farmers wanting to take them to market and anybody interested in creating value added products. There's multiple varieties available with different ripening windows, so this allows for a longer harvest throughout the June season. And then as we make it over to the other side of the yard, this is some ever-bearing varieties. They, produce longer, or day neutral, I guess is what you call them. They produce longer throughout the season, but they only produce like one berry at a time. There's some negatives and positives to each, obviously. The negative to these is that since only one berry produces at a time, it's easier for like the pests to be irritants. So, for instance, this year we had rabbits that would come by and just take one bite out of a fruit and leave it lay, and then the ants would infect the rest of the fruit because it had their way in, and nature doing nature things, man. And so that's the frustrating part about your day neutral, but they're less productive in the long run, and so I'll probably be transitioning more towards different varieties of June bearing, so that way I've got a longer harvest window. There are early, mid, and late varieties for strawberries. For the varieties of the everbearing, there are Seascape and Albion, and these are Seascape, I believe. So now let's move on to some successes and failures. I would actually call this a neither. They're not happy, they're not sad, they're just there. So there's one location for strawberries. If you can kind of point them out. There's a couple dotted throughout here. It also looks like I have dog pressure. My dog must have been walking through this portion of the garden. That's always fun. Heading to a new strawberry patch. This is what I would call an abject failure. I planted it on the north side of this aronia and this dogwood. I believe that's a silver maple or something. I'm not sure exactly what that is. But yeah, planted it on the north side of those big trees, and they absolutely do not get enough light. So there used to be some, like literally all through here. Wherever you're seeing this ground cover used to be all strawberries. So yeah, abject failure. Lesson for the future. And then I also have strawberries dotted all throughout here. If you'll pay attention, most of these are June bearing types, and so we'll see how they come along for future seasons. They get quite a bit more sun in this area, so we're hoping that these will be productive on this fence row. Back to the original strawberry plot. This is far and away the most successful portion. I'd say it's probably 5 foot by 5 foot, 6 foot by 6 foot, something like that area. And We probably got 4 or 5 solid pickings off of this, and it produced anywhere from, a pint or 2 at a time. So that was a good amount. And anywhere in the garden there's a strawberry, you're going to be dealing with bugs, critters, something. And so what I do, I'm not saying this is what you should do, is even if there's a critter bite on it, just bite that off and spit it out. Nothing's happened to me yet, so I'm gonna keep on doing it. I'm sure some people get grossed out by hearing that, but that's my jive, baby. Giving the redneck a good name. The varieties for June bearing for early season, there's multiple varieties, but Early Glow is for early season, Flavor Fest for mid-season, and Jewel for late season. Get you a full window of mid, early, and late, so you could sell strawberries all year long. I actually bought mine from Indiana Berry. I'll try and remember to put that in the description, but they've performed really well for me. Since then, I've decided to source more locally if possible, but at least it's not out in the West Coast or, on the other side of the world. It's just in Indiana, just another state over. So, and then we'll move on to the next fruit, which is back there, if you can see it. Raspberries and black-cap raspberries. In the midst of a drought, if you cannot tell, and this raspberry is standing strong. Not a whole lot of light, there's a building right here, there's trees right here, and then the sun kind of tracks that way. It's not an extremely good amount of light, but it is thriving. Loves this spot. It's an organic raspberry. I got one of the farms I work on. Rubus idaeus. It grows like a weed, and it's actually, all of the wild relatives are listed as noxious weeds. I love food plants that just want to thrive, you know what I mean? Something that you can just plant once and kind of forget about. Well, in my area, it is the brambles. Blackberries, raspberries, black-cap raspberries, which I'll be talking about next. Yeah, they love growing here. There's something about Kentucky that they just, at least my part of Kentucky, that they enjoy. And so I decided to, rather than complain that they're showing up, multiply them. That's one of my favorite things about these kinds of plants, is that they can spread from rhizomes, seed, or tip layering. So if I really wanted to, I could just lay that over, weigh the tip of it down with a rock, and it would make us some new plants. These, as well as black-cap raspberries, are ripe shortly after strawberries, so it helps to extend the harvest. So you'll have beaten berry more of the season. If you plant it right in Kentucky, you can have, berries for most of the summer and fruit for most of the growing season. So we'll move on to the black-cap raspberries. Black-cap raspberry, Rubus occidentalis. Ripe around the same time as raspberries. One of the most common varieties is Jewel black-cap. The way that you can tell the difference between these and blackberries is that they're generally smaller, unless you're dealing with wild blackberries and they're around the same size. The center part of the fruit actually stays on the plant, rather than on a blackberry it comes with the fruit. So that's one way to tell them apart. They are delicious. On to mulberries. I know I only said 3, but you're getting a bonus fruit today. We're going with some mulberries now. Quick story about mulberry. They're actually one of my favorites to forage. We've got them loaded on our parks around the area. Me and my girlfriend went for a half exercise, half forage trip the other day and came back with these babies. This is the 2024 stock. We found one tree with substantially larger fruit and better tasting fruit, and we brought a handful of the fruit home, and this is the babies. These are the seedling babies. We're hoping that these will be good stuff, because they started out as good stuff. Ripe around the same time as, in between probably, strawberries and raspberries, at least from what I remember. There's a pretty wide ripening window for these. depending on which tree you're dealing with. Got one here, got one there, and then I got an ever-bearing variety right here. And so, yeah, they're male-female trees, so you got a 50-50 shot of getting something that's going to produce fruit. This is known genetics, the everbearer here, so I know it's going to make fruit, but these two right here could be males for all I know. I'm hoping that's not the case, but it could be. And so there is a hot debate going on between the native plant community and the permaculture world. Some of the people in the native plant community I've seen online say that if it is not a native mulberry, you need to chop it down. Well, I don't think it's that simple. From my research, now I could be wrong. Somebody can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but from my research, from what I understand, is there are 3 species of mulberry. There is Morus rubra, which is the red and native to the United States. There's the Morus alba, has Asian lineage. And then there is the Morus nigra, which I believe is like Middle Eastern, Pakistani, India, like that area of the world. So I guess that would still be West Asia in parts. Look at me on geography, wow. But yeah, so they all readily hybridize, and you can have fruit of many different colors. Like there's black fruit, red fruit, reddish blue fruit, reddish black fruit, reddish purple fruit. So unless you have a lab test, from my understanding, there's no real way to know 100% sure, be 100% certain of your genetics. So the way I see it is let it ride, baby. Get you some fruit where you can. They're really good for, at least the Morus alba I've read is really good in the diabetic world. There's research studies out there. You can go read them. I'm not here to cite everything I say because I'm not like that. I've read it. Like I said, there's no real way to tell the genetics of your mulberries. So I, myself, am going to enjoy the abundance of fruit that comes from the mulberry. Well, produce people, there was 4 berry plants that I'm growing. Hopefully you got something out of that. Remember, this is a how I do, not a how-to production. Do what you want. These are just my notes. Do with it what you want. Go out, experiment, try things, put your hands in the dirt. Don't just watch people, act. Change the world, one action at a time. If anyone has any feedback, points of concern, something they want to talk about, leave it in the comments below. I'd be happy to talk. And I'll get back to you as soon as time allows. I plan to post another video later on this week. My goal is to post 2 videos a week for the next year and see how I do. See how much I'm enjoying it and see what's going on. See what's going on with this whole YouTube community. My goal is to build a community of like-minded folks who are interested in perennial plants and want to grow food in their backyard in a food forest setting, limit their pesticide usages. I wouldn't say I'm organic, but I try and grow as naturally as possible. I use organic amendments when I can. If not, I don't use any amendments at all. I mulch with leaf litter and weeds from the yard. I've got a lot to learn, a lot of work to do, but it's a challenge I'm willing to take on. And I just want to continue growing and learning every day. And I just want to thank you all for joining the ride. Be looking out for that video later this week. But until then, so long, produce people. Happy growing.